So it's business as usual in Washington, and Tim Cox has a plan to fix that. So getoutofourhouse.com, become involved. These are action items and tools. Also, of course, suethefed.com. You can go there, log on for free, become a member for free, become a co-plaintiff, and sue the Federal Reserve and put an end to this madness by abolishing the Federal Reserve. So I encourage all of our listeners to visit suethefed.com. There is a solution there. Remember, we know this. We have to follow the money. And the money is created out of thin air, backed by nothing, by the Federal Reserve, which is a they regulate themselves. They're the regulator for the Fed. And so sue the Fed is a means to abolish the Federal Reserve. Also, not present at tonight's meeting, but also please visit campaignforliberty.com. This, of course, is the original First Tea Party that gathered around the country to help campaign for Ron Paul some years ago. Well, their numbers grew, and there's about 500,000, I understand, throughout the country, and a chapter in Florida, and there's probably a chapter in every state. So visit campaignforliberty.com. This is an important group as well, standing for our liberties, and support Ron Paul in getting the Fed problem addressed through Congress by the Audit the Fed bill. So these are some proactive things we can do. And lastly, before we take your questions, Save America Convention. Clearly, if you're in Florida, just come to the convention. And for those of us in different states, if you have the means, please fly down. I believe this will be, to date at least, as far as I'm aware, it'll be the event in 2011 for the country. And we have Judge Andrew Napolitano as a keynote speaker, addressing the erosion of our civil liberties and the Constitution and the unconstitutionality of the Federal Reserve. Each speaker we've created the opportunity for a Q&A with each speaker. So we have the judge, we have former governor of New Mexico, Governor Gary Johnson, the legendary author of the book The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin. And we also have a former presidential candidate and 5-term congressman, Tom Tancredo. He's going to be talking about the greatest threat facing America today and solutions for the crisis at the border. We also have Franz Cabral. Franz Cabral, you may recall, was one of the black robe pastors at the 828 event on the Mall in Washington with Glenn Beck. Sheriff Richard Mack, Joseph Farah from WorldNet Daily, Master Sergeant Mad Max Mullen, Stuart Rhodes from Oath Keepers, Dr. Richard Davis, Dr. Kirk Elliott. I will be your master of ceremonies, and I'll also be talking in more detail about API's 4 pillars. We have Paul St. John, who's going to take us through the Great American Coup of 1913, where it all began, and he's going to be focusing on the importance of the 16th and 17th Amendments, what they are, why they were set up, and why they need to go. And we also have Keith Flaw representing Tim Cox from Get Out of Our House, who's going to be talking in much more detail about the mock session process so you can get involved. And we have Brandon Smith from the Alternative Markets Movement, NitaCorp.us, who's going to be talking about launching the alternative market communities and talking about the media disinformation. And we have James Mel's just been added to the convention, and I'll formally introduce him through the website soon. And he actually has a solution to this budget deficit disaster, and apparently nobody in Congress does, because the solution isn't 100 billion or 30 billion, because all that is borrowing more money, kicking the can further down the road, and that road is running out. They'll be going off the cliff very soon. We do have an invitation out to Congressman Dr. Ron Paul to attend this event, and we'll be contacting the National Campaign for Liberty Director to see if Dr. Paul can attend, and certainly we'll make an announcement. So please, 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 come out to the Save America Convention. Tickets are $99. Go to SaveAmericaConvention.com, and we're going to be putting together a blueprint from all the speakers collectively, and we're going to hand that out on Sunday, which will be filled with action items, resources, and tools so that you can get involved in the process and help us restore this republic. We also have on Sunday a full 1-hour open panel Q&A session with many of the speakers at the convention. So thank you. We've got quite a few questions, and we're going to hope to get to them all. Jot this down, if you will. I'm going to take the questions now. The way this will work is I'll look at the question and I'll direct it to the presenter who I think would be most suitable to answer the question, and we'll try and get through all the questions. My communication lines are open to all of the guests attending. Write this down. This is my personal email address. It's jychambers@msn.com. And you can reach us at our office in the Tampa Bay area at 727-329-0048. Also encourage you, when you go to our sites, Asset Preservation, it links you to many other sites I have. You can listen to every radio program I've ever done and all the programs each week on demand from podcasts and iTunes. We've had Tim Cox on, we've had Stuart Rhodes, Dr. Davis, Dr. Elliott, Tom Tancredo, basically all of our speakers, G. Edward Griffin, Ron Paul, and many others. There's a lot of good information there. It's a way of keeping connected. Alrighty, so let's begin with the questions. I'm going to go back in the order they came in, if this is possible to do. Let's begin. Okay, Sheriff, I'll just take some of these quickly. Sheriff Mack is not attending in this briefing, but he will be at the convention, and he will perhaps be at one of these video conferences in the future. All right. Larry, if you can come in here and help me navigate these questions perhaps easier than I'm doing would be great. Okay, here's a question. How is the U.S. stock market manipulated, and by whom? Dr. Elliott.
Sorry, I was still on mute. U.S. stock market's being manipulated by no one else than the Federal Reserve pumping stimulus money into the banks. So what happens is this is a classic liquidity crunch. You've got trillions of dollars being invested, all these stimulus plans, the bailouts and so forth. It's going to the big banks, Citibank, Bank of America, Chase, and so forth. But they're not lending it out to small businesses and the consumer. So what do they do with all this trillions of dollars that they're not lending it out? They're injecting it into the Dow. That's why the Dow is hovering at around 12,000 when fundamentally there are no revenues. It is very weak. That's why they're laying off people by the hundreds of thousands every single week. So that's how it's being manipulated. It's with stimulus money.
Thank you, Kirk. Well, there's a question about would it be wise to continue to pay down my mortgage? Kirk?
I wouldn't pay it down any faster. I would actually, at this point, just make your minimum payments, invest the difference into precious metals, because metals are growing on average 30% a year. Now, eventually, you will. I am a complete proponent of getting out of debt. However, if we can have these huge, massive trend lines working for us, you ultimately use that when these markets peak out, and then pay it off with a lot of the profits and with the money you had originally invested or used to pay it off. Sorry.
Thank you. I may direct this question perhaps to Stuart Rhodes, and it speaks to the unconstitutionality of President Barack Obama's presidency. What are your thoughts about what can be done about this?
Say it again. What's the question again?
The question speaks to the illegitimacy of President Obama's office of the president because of the birth issue. What could be done about this?
Well, I think Lieutenant Colonel Lakin, that was his point. And obviously, if an officer thinks that the Commander-in-Chief is not qualified to serve as Commander-in-Chief, he has a right, and somebody would say a duty, to do exactly what Lakin did. But my focus is not so much on the current occupant, but the systemic trend through the Bush administration, back to the Clinton administration, and now with Obama. It's the same trend. It doesn't make a difference who's in power. They're still moving us away from our constitutional republic and to destroy